You're watching WXYZ 7. Now, Action News.
A mugger thought his elderly victim was easy prey today. That is until the victim's neighbors stepped in and gave the mugger a severe beating and some community justice. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, the elderly victim is safe, but her mugger is hurting after a group of neighbors roughed him up a little bit. Action News reporter Mike Bowersock is live from Detroit's east side with more on this story. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Ray. We are on Derby, which is near State Fair and John R. You take a look around this neighborhood. Right next to the house where this happened, some houses are burned out. It is a pretty rough-looking neighborhood. However, the folks around here look out for these folks, and they showed that this afternoon. Inside this ambulance is a man the folks here on Derby know as the neighborhood crackhead. He'll be going to Detroit Receiving Hospital after receiving a few rounds of street justice this afternoon. Neighbors caught him, beat him up, and held him for police after he robbed this elderly woman just outside her home. He was running down the sidewalk, but was dragged back to the house.
She went to open the door, and he just kicked the door in, and she wouldn't let him in. He grabbed her, like, by her purse, because she was getting ready to leave. Grabbed her by her purse and just dragged her down the stairway here, and kept on running.
Bill Loy was one of the men who helped hold him down. Neighbors say this was the second time in the past week the woman was robbed by this same man.
He went inside to do some errand for her. She's an old lady, about 83 years old. And he put his coat over her purse. That's what she told me a couple of days ago. And when he left, $1,000 was missing.
One of the men who held the thief down was questioned at length by police. It wasn't clear if he would be charged with anything. Up to 6 men were involved, but most ran when police showed up. That thief, he will likely be okay. Some of the police officers here told me that he was conscious, he was talking, he was walking, just had some cuts on his face, roughed up. His problems now are with the law. Live in Detroit, I'm Mike Bowersock, Channel 7 Action News.
Thank you, Mike. It was an emotional day at a church in Dearborn Heights. Today, the Detroit Archdiocese paid its members a visit to talk about sexual abuse allegations against a priest. Action News reporter Chris Kuhl is live in Dearborn Heights with the story. Chris?
Good evening, Heather. Well, members of the Detroit Archdiocese did stop by St. Sebastian here to talk with parishioners about the allegations against Father William Brennan. Now, afterward, after the meeting, hundreds of parishioners stuck around for a special service to support the priest. This afternoon, a candlelight vigil at St. Sebastian Church in Dearborn Heights. Parishioners came out to pray for Father William Brennan, a man who's led them in services here for 33 years. Brennan was recently placed on administrative leave and restricted from public ministry following allegations of sexual misconduct with girls during the early years of his ministry. They are allegations parishioners here say simply can't be true.
Father Brennan is St. Sebastian's. St. Sebastian's is Father Brennan. We're going to crumble without him. We love him. I've known him for 33 years. I worked for him. He's a very generous man. His reputation, his actions have been nothing but absolutely impeccable.
Backers of Father Brennan question the validity of the accusations because they come decades after the alleged abuse. They wonder why the women are coming forward now.
What do they hope to gain by speaking out 40-plus years after the fact?
Prosecutors in Wayne County say the statute of limitations on the cases have passed, so there won't be any criminal proceedings. Meantime, the Archdiocese says Brennan will not be returning to St. Sebastian.
He won't be coming back to this parish because he's resigned as the pastor.
Okay.
And he's retired, so.
Parishioners say it's unfair, and they will continue to pray for Father Brennan, a man they say they will always admire. Now, the Detroit Archdiocese has not been specific about what kind of action could be taken against Father Brennan. Meanwhile, parishioners say they will back him no matter what happens. We're live in Dearborn Heights. Chris Kuhl, Channel 7 Action News.
Thanks, Chris. 6 Mount Clemens police officers are under investigation by the FBI and face possible criminal charges. Robert Paxton says he was severely beaten by the officers after he was pulled over. Paxton was stopped by police following a road rage incident with an off-duty officer. Police say he resisted arrest and had to be wrestled to the ground. Ray?
Washington is holding out hope tonight that a majority of UN Security Council members will approve.
I was willing to go either way.
Meanwhile, a top Iraqi official says he's convinced the U.S. has already decided to go to war against his country. Lauren Rogers reports from our nation's capital.
As Iraqi newspapers called on the United Nations to lift economic sanctions, UN weapons inspectors traveled to a missile factory north of Baghdad. They watched the continued destruction of Iraqi Al-Samud missiles, as well as the equipment used to make them. I
said I feel badly about it. You're putting words in my mouth. You're being
reportedly told that Iraq and its people are ready for war. The latest proposed UN resolution aimed at disarming Saddam would give him until March 17th to comply. The Bush administration is hoping for a Security Council vote on that resolution this week and feels it has the necessary support.
We tabled it on Friday afternoon, the United Kingdom did, and we have to give our friends a couple of days to study it, reflect on it.
National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice says that the U.S. and its allies are tired of waiting for Saddam.
We use the word surreal.
To show that he is finally going to come into compliance with 1441. He's had a very long time to do it. He could do it tomorrow if he wants to do it. We don't need more time.
But Saddam Hussein's scientific advisor says his country has cooperated with the United Nations.
Once again, we confirm that Iraq is clean of weapons of mass destruction, and that all the American and British allegations are mere lies and baseless accusations. This fact is proved through the inspections and verification implemented in the past 3 months.
Opposition to a U.S.-led war continues.
From here at the Row tomorrow at 8 a.m. on ESPN. And a reminder that the
New York Times published 2 editorials, including one by former President Jimmy Carter, both objecting to war against Iraq without international support.
That was Lauren Rogers reporting. The U.S. has yet to declare war against Iraq, but the psychological warfare has already started. Today, the U.S. military continued to bombard Iraq with paper. U.S. planes dumped almost 200,000 leaflets over southern Iraq. The leaflets have a warning for Iraqi soldiers. The warning reads, Iraqi air defense positions which fire on coalition aircraft will be attacked and destroyed. The U.S. military has dropped millions of propaganda leaflets over Iraq in the last few months.
There are new concerns about nuclear.
For regional action, the AFL on NBC next Sunday at the special early time of noon Eastern for Colorado, Arizona at 3 Pacific.
On Sundays, no.
The development of the plant is more advanced than first thought. The continuing search for Osama bin Laden in Pakistan is intensifying. The al-Qaeda leader's suspected whereabouts have been narrowed down to a 350-mile stretch of southwestern Pakistan. Bin Laden has not been seen since a November 2001 videotape, but several audio tapes reportedly made by him have been released in recent months.
Coming up on Action News, Robert Blake and his real-life drama. We'll look at his case as it heads back into the courtroom.
To expand bike paths and sidewalks here in Beverly Hills is raising more than just a few eyebrows tonight. I'm Blake Chenault, and we'll explain coming up in a live report.
And we started off on the cold side today, but as skies clear out just a little bit more tonight, our temperatures are going to be even colder. That is going to give us some sunshine, though, for tomorrow, which will end up making us a little bit warmer. All the details in the Doppler 7 forecast coming up.
ABC Monday.
Patrons were hurt when a brawl broke out early this morning at a Times Square nightclub in New York City. 8 people were shot, 2 were stabbed, and another 2 were trampled as people tried to escape the violence. Police are searching for 2 suspects in the incident. They don't think the fight was gang-related. 2 of the shooting victims are in critical condition, but none of the other injuries are considered life-threatening.
The preliminary hearing.
Darielle? Marcella, a 70-year-old man died at the Marquette House after he slipped and fell on some ice.
After failing to get 2 Hollywood stuntmen to do it for him. But the credibility of one of the stuntmen has been questioned because his story has changed. Meanwhile, Bonnie Lee Blakely's daughter spoke up the last time she talked to her mother the day before she was killed.
She couldn't openly talk with me.
This morning, police say the 70-year-old victim was only wearing a short-sleeve shirt, blue jeans, and slippers.
Super germs are on the rise, and doctors don't know how to stop them.
That story is coming up, and a community wrestles over sidewalks. Are the walkways worth the money or not? Action News will be right back.
Reporter Blake Chenault is live in Beverly Hills with more on the story. Good evening, Blake.
You're absolutely right, Heather. The plan to expand the bike paths and other walkways here in Beverly Hills has been around for quite a while. Supporters of the plan, well, they're gathering quite a bit of steam, but the plan also has quite a bit of opposition.
When do we want them? Now! What do we want? Sidewalks!
Supporters of a new bike path in Beverly Hills put out a last-ditch effort today to get out the vote. That's because tomorrow voters will decide if they want their taxes raised in order to pay for the new path.
We want to have sidewalks. We want a safe pathway for our community members to get around, young, old.
There are about 44 miles of unconnected sidewalks and bike paths in Beverly Hills. Under the proposal, 4 additional miles of pathways would be built and complete the entire system. The plan would cost $960,000. So taxes for the average homeowner would go up about $40 a year for 5 years. Judy Trumbull opposes the plan because of the tax hike as well as other reasons.
I like the property the way it is, all grass and sort of country looking.
Proponents say the bike path would increase the safety of outdoor enthusiasts, especially children.
The sidewalks would make it a lot safer. I mean, I get kind of nervous going next to the cars.
But Soder Liberty says the project is underfunded, and he doubts it will increase the safety for anyone, especially children.
I live right on 13 Mile Road. Rarely do I see any child walking.
So there's a good chance that this issue will be decided once and for all tomorrow. That's when voters will go to the polls and vote on it. Now, the polls open up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning here in Beverly Hills and close tomorrow night at 8. Live in Beverly Hills, Blake Chenault, Channel 7 Action News.
Thank you, Blake. Dozens of people took part in a rally this morning to save a high school in Dearborn. The pastor at St. Alphonsus High School recently recommended that the school should close its doors at the end of the school year. The pastor says his recommendation is based on dwindling enrollment. But a special task force is taking action in hopes of keeping the school open. Many who want the school to stay open are among generations of past students who attended the Catholic school.
Every time there's been a change in leadership, we've lost students. There have been a lot of rumors over the years that the school was going to close, and an uncertain future has really cost us our student population.
Supporters say all it takes to increase enrollment and keep the school open is to get the word out with some good marketing. And at a church in downtown Detroit today, a special service honored the men and women who've lost their lives on the Great Lakes. This was the 39th annual memorial service and blessing of the fleet at the Old Mariners Church.